My name's Alexandra Mirapol.
I'm Dakota Gelman.
I'm Sarah Blake.
And I'm Lily Woodsoe, and this is our project, The Beat Generation, Breaking Barriers in Art and Society.
Follow your inner moonlight, don't hide the madness. Allen Ginsberg, how?
The Beat Generation broke barriers through writing in a new stream of consciousness style with radical ideas. This work contributed to redefining the relationship between the artist and the audience, as well as changing societal perspectives on politics, alternative lifestyles, and taboos.
In the earliest years of the Beat Generation, America was in the wake of McCarthyism, the Red Scare, and World War II. The Beats themselves were a collective of people, most of whom were writers that went against societal standards and the definition of art. In the earliest days, they were centered in New York City, and then they went into San Francisco, Denver, and Mexico.
This new generation of artists existed as a rebellion to politics at the time. Their art and expression were so far beyond the barrier of society that their genius and controversy is still groundbreaking today. Their effect on the literary world was so powerful that it has been said every writer everywhere owes something to the Beat Generation.
I'm Jack Kerouac, a so-called pioneer of the Beat Generation.
And I'm Ed, a friend and supporter of Jack. Jack, I think you should carry a journal around with you wherever you go, just like you do for my architecture.
I was actually thinking of going on a road trip, so maybe I can do something similar there.
Jack later wrote to me and said, "By the way, you started a whole new movement of American literature that night when in the Chinese restaurant on 125th Street, when you told me to start sketching in the streets."
The Beats were created in many ways because of their circumstance. They were growing up in a post-war society that was attempting to find consistency after chaos through the stereotypical suburban family home. They chose to break free from the structured life and express themselves in unconventional ways, as well as critiquing society through radical art. In Jones' famous apartment, the Beats would meet, and has often been cited as the beginning of the Beats.
I'm Joan, and this is my husband, William Burroughs, and this is our apartment where most of it began.
I'm considered the father of the Beats and am looked up to for my wisdom. I'm so sick of everything we're working on getting shut down.
Like what?
Did you hear about Michael's play, Beer? It got shut down and actors were arrested on stage.
One of the biggest events in Beat history was the reading of Allen Ginsberg's poem, How, at the Sea Lakes bookstore in San Francisco, a hub for Beat poets. In 1955, Ginsberg's iconic poem was read. The crowd clapped and cheered along with him as he read the 112-line poem about the Beats. It then faced the barrier of its banishment from radio. Even to this day, it is not allowed to be played.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked. Hi, I'm Allen Ginsberg, one of the most brilliant poets of the Beat Generation. Neil Cassidy whooped and hollered as I read my infamous poem. It was never just mine, it was a poem for all of us. It grew the relationship of the reader to the audience. The poem was banned due to obscenity, and Ferlinghetti, the publisher of the City Lights bookstore, was one of the only people who would carry my poem. Eventually, he was tried and arrested for obscenity as well. Howl and other Beat Generation poems that explored homosexuality and the problems of society, I was targeted, even put on J. Edgar Hoover, the head of the FBI at the time's list. But the poem did more than just be censored. It grew the Beat Generation, changed the relationship of people to the art they create, grew the relationship of the reader to the audience. My neighbor Luke Sante even said,
"You can feel the poem giving you supernatural power, the ability to punch through brick walls and to walk across cities from rooftop to rooftop."
I'm with you, Rockland, in my dreams you walk, dripping from a sea journey on the highway across America in tears to the door of my cottage in the western night.
On the Road is considered the Bible of the Beats, and it spurred a groundbreaking revolution amongst teens to run away on road trips to the West with nothing but a copy of the book in their back pockets. It was received poorly. On the Road reflected the freedom from desire, from tradition, within the Beat Generation.
I'm Neil Cassidy. I've been called the energy of the Beat Generation, though I never published anything. I became good friends with Jack Kerouac before a trip across the country. I wanted Jack to accompany me, so he joined me and Alan in Denver.
Neil and I started traveling together in the winter of 1949, immortalized in my book On the Road, where I am Sal Paradise and Neil is Dean Moriarty.
What's so important about the book? It started a revolution among all of us. It defined what the Beat Generation really was and what we stood for.
It also broke many barriers in the literary world. It was received poorly by critics. Truman Capote even said, "That isn't writing, it's typing." But despite this, it developed a new style of writing, one that was free of constraint, and opened the doors of the Beat Generation to the rest of the world.
Our time together in Denver was short-lived. We roamed around Larimer Square and went to jazz clubs where we listened to the most beatific jazz you ever heard, and then we went our separate ways.
The Beats also had a short-term impact in music and the generations of influential artists that came after them. They broke barriers within free speech, allowing for future musicians to experiment with taboo ideas and free form within their lyrics.
Someone had handed me Mexico City Blues by Jack Kerouac in St. Paul, 1959. It blew my mind. It was the first poetry I'd read before that really spoke my language. It's saying what it means to be an American. I came out of the wilderness and naturally fell in with the beat scene. It was Jack Kerouac, Ginsberg, Corso, Ferlinghetti. I got in at the tail end and it was magic. It had just as big an impact on me as Elvis Presley.
Burroughs has a way of writing that really pushes me to integrate his style of writing into my method of writing lyrics and making music. It's a technique using visual and verbal reassembly. I read Burroughs' novel, Nova Express, and applied its format to my next album, Diamond Dogs. Something I say is a fusion of Burroughs and George Orwell. Burroughs' way of writing completely suits my own fragmented consciousness.
I met with Burroughs many times in the late 60s. The beats were so impactful, even John Lennon altered our band's name from the Beatles to the Beatles. Burroughs is even on the cover of the Lonely Hearts Club album.
Every year there is an annual Neil Cassidy birthday bash held in Denver, Colorado, where Beats and fans alike come to appreciate the long-term impact that the Beats had.
What was the movement to you, Jennifer Dorn?
Being friends with Allen Ginsberg and myself a writer in the 60s, I can say they truly broke what it meant to live and love.
And what was the Beats' impact?
They paved the way for future artists. So many poets owe everything to the Beats. They defined the new path for future artists.
And what was the movement to you?
Well, my name is Edward, and I was William Burroughs' son's lifelong best friend. I think the principal thing that people don't understand about the Beat Generation is that it was centered entirely around love. Even though people like Neil are credited and famous, there are beatniks everywhere that just stopped conforming to society, bringing great change.
Thank you. Another long-term impact that the Beats had was their legacy in education. Naropa College in Boulder is a place of intersection between the Beat writers and Buddhism. Here they met in the land, created art, and discussed the future of their movement. Allen Ginsberg and others then decided to create a school based upon the Beat Generation principles, and now teaches these ideas and even has a library dedicated to Allen Ginsberg and a Jack Kerouac school for disembodied poets.
Professor Rebai from Naropa, what was your relationship to the Beats?
Being friends with Allen Ginsberg, I was a beatnik myself and carried On the Road in my pocket throughout my first job. They just had a very loving and uninhibited creativity. It was not just rebellion, but reacting against things with a positive force through acknowledging how rich and unpredictable life can be. It was the spirit of experiment and vitality to live and not be named and give detail and importance to the ordinary.
Thank you.
The Beats' impact on American life, art, and society is shown in many different ways.
As well, many modern anti-war movements were started by the Beat Generation as they were one of the first people to break the molds of society.
Concepts like free love and free expression of sexuality and homosexuality were started by the Beats.
Their impact and the destruction of tradition is seen in everything they did. Their radical anti-war beliefs, their art, their free expression of sexuality is unparalleled by any other movement in history.
Thank you.